Welcome everybody to the Leaders in Housing Counseling call for October 15th. I'm glad everybody's coming in. We've got a pretty crowded agenda, so I wanted to get us started early, or on time actually. On time is never early. And we had at one point posted that we were going to have this call be devoted to advocacy on student debt, and that actually is going to be in the first call in November. I think it's November 5th. I'm sorry. Yeah, the first call in November, November 5th, I think the date is. And we've got a number of advocates lined up for that call. Should be pretty good. And we are and I think we'll get a lot out of it, but it'll also be helpful to hear from you in the field what you're seeing. We're particularly interested in how it impacts people's ability to buy a house when they're on an income-driven program. And we're doing some research on it as well, and hopefully we'll have more to add to the conversation. But with that note, let's go to the agenda we actually have. And so we're going to do a quick federal funding update. I want to talk to you about the Leaders in Housing Counseling national meeting coming up, which is going to be good. These will be pretty quick. Reminder about the Google AdWords campaign, the internet marketing campaign that I hope many of you are seriously thinking about participating in so that we can get broad reach. And very quickly on the mortgage servicing survey and student loan debt webinars. But we're going to focus the call, first part of the call, on a national campaign that's being led by ACE and the community organization ACE and Amy Scher, and revolves around a number of large community organizing networks, and they're going after distressed note sales and trying to get the people who are handling those note sales to, in fact, get title of those properties to go to nonprofits and to get better resolutions for the people that do end up going through the process. And as we know, in many of these note sales, they quickly go to foreclosure, and the opportunity to get people principal reduction and an affordable resolution is often lost. And so there's been a very large meeting in DC at the end of September, and we'll had key people in there. Mel Watt, they met with Mel Watt, with Elizabeth Warren, with Ed Golding, the head of the FHA commissioner. So they're doing some serious progress. The way it impacts us is, well, one, that we think this is the right issue, and two, they've actually pointed out that Lone Star, one of the biggest purchasers, is what's happening with the loans that they purchase. Caliber is the lender, is the servicer, and it's a good opportunity to figure out what they're doing on the ground. You're the authorities on this, so Amy, it's very interesting hearing from what your experience is there. And then we're going to have a return visit from Roz Quarto from ESOP, and Roz was our leading person on innovations in housing counseling, the series where we're talking with groups about what innovative things they're doing now. That was maybe 6 months ago or so, and we want to see how it's going on with the initiatives she's got around a nonprofit real estate company and around doing a special financial capability program around senior citizens. So Roz will join us at 1:30 for that part of the call as well. And we'll, of course, close out with a quick plug for joining NHRC and then attending the next meeting. So with that note, let's move on. And so a lot of the news these days about what's happening, especially in the House. So Matthew, bring us up to date.
Yeah, so there's not a lot that has changed since 2 weeks ago when we last spoke. I imagine folks have been following the news that there's very little happening by way of a federal budget because there's so much confusion among the Republican caucus in the House. Speaker Boehner announced a few weeks ago he'd be stepping down. The next in line was Congressman McCarthy from California, who seemed like he was a lock, but at the last minute realized he wasn't going to have the votes because some of the most conservative House members would not support him. So where it stands now, I mean, Congressman Ryan, I think pretty clearly has the support of the Republican caucus and could be the speaker if he wanted to be. He, I think, like many sane people, is not sure that he wants to be. He had been very clear that he did not want to be and is now kind of reconsidering it. A lot of people have been pushing him to reconsider. Besides that, at least a dozen other folks have said that if Ryan doesn't run, that they will. Our friend Congressman Dent has been very vocal that the Republican caucus needs to do whatever they can to stop what he calls the obstructionist wing of the party, and he's even mentioned potentially working with Democrats if need be to work on bipartisan solutions. There was actually a fraction of, I forget the number, but a fraction of moderate Republicans did join together with the House Democrats to pass something that the conservative Republicans, which was reauthorizing the Export-Import Bank, which is an obscure issue but an important one that needed to happen. So there's some, there's things going in all different directions right now. So we'll keep monitoring this and let folks know as more developments happen, hopefully over the next few weeks.
And along those lines, you've got a meeting tomorrow, right?
Yes, tomorrow. Yes, so we will be in the Cleveland, in Northeast Ohio, outside of Cleveland, meeting with Congressman David Joyce, who's the second up on the House T-HUD Appropriations Committee. We're going to meet with, we're going to be at the Fair Housing Resource Center in Paynesville. Folks from ESOP and NHS of Greater Cleveland are going to join us. We're going to have some clients and let the congressman and his staff meet clients, hear their stories, hear about the good work that's happening in his district, and hear from counselors on what they're seeing. And we'll thank the House for supporting funding for NFMC and encourage the House, if there ever happens to be a negotiation with the Senate, to stand up for the House budget number.
And he fits into the moderate Republican camp, is that right?
Yeah, I mean the district is fairly moderate, and I'd say he's closer to the middle, certainly.
And he's on approps in the T-HUD subcommittee, so the key element there. So hats off to the people in Ohio. Patricia Kidd's operation, Fair Housing Resource Center in Paynesville, Ohio is the place where it's being sponsored. And a number of good people are going to be there to, along with their clients, to make the case that helps all of us. Okay, so, and we have our Leaders in Housing Counseling National Meeting. We're going to plug this every call. Really, it's shaping up pretty well. I think we announced already that Sarah Jarick will join us for the day. We are in conversations with some of the policymakers about seeing if we can't use the next few weeks to build some momentum towards this, to make this meeting a decision-making platform. We're trying to address the whole issues around integrating housing counseling into various programs and the question about sustainable funding. So there's a lot of good thinking going on about the meeting. We'll see how it all shapes up and keep you informed. These are really good opportunities for people to get together and help shape our program, and also work with your peers and get to know what people are doing all around the country, but also we do build in some time for people to communicate and relax afterwards as well. So the morning session, of course, will be for the NHRC members, and we'll have a lunch as well, and that will be a lot of fun, I'm pretty sure. And then the afternoon will be really policy initiatives open to everybody, and then in the evening we'll have drinks and food and make a more informal setting for all this. This will be at the Convention Center in DC where the NTI is taking place, and hats off to NeighborWorks for making the room available for that part of the meeting. We're also, just a quick reminder, there's, I think, a big opportunity. We've talked about this a couple calls ago about the Google AdWords as an internet marketing program, and we have the dual goal of getting groups to use this to promote their programs, but we also think that it's a way of socializing the idea of housing counseling and get word about it more out there. And the idea is to get a number of groups to do this, to do it in coordination, to learn from your experiences, and then as we grow, maybe making it into more of an event kind of thing and do some publicity around it. But you know, we're going to plant the seeds now, start small, figure it out, and then in 2016 try to think about how to make something like this a little bit more visible and interesting. So your participation really welcome. The next step for you is we did circulate an email about how to do these, but just click the link and get onto our list. It's a brief survey just asking how far you've gotten on in the process. But you don't have to have gotten anywhere if you're interested, and just let's get you on the list so that we have a team of people that can start talking about this stuff. Matthew, how's the mortgage survey coming? Looks like we're getting some numbers in here.
Yeah, so far it's been going well. I think we circulated it 2 weeks ago, towards the end of the week. So it's been open about actually I think it's been open 1 week. We have over 100 responses, which has been great. Thank you very much to the folks that did it. Someone actually, I was going to make the comment, someone just said that was one long survey, and it was. So we appreciate that folks stuck with it, and most folks answered all the questions. But it's really important to get this feedback. We're going to take the data that we get and bring it to CFPB, so we can give them some concrete numbers on particular servicers, what rules servicers are following, what rules servicers are not following, what services are not following, lots of rules. It's really helpful for them. We'll meet with the enforcement folks, and being able to give them concrete data is very important. So I would really encourage anyone that hasn't done it, if you could please, I said there it could take 15 or 30 minutes. I don't know if folks could let me know actually in the question box about how long it took them to do. But if you could also make sure to circulate it to your counselors and ask them to participate. If you could also circulate it to your networks of counseling colleagues, it would be really helpful. We'd love to get up over a couple hundred responses. And you see the link right there, and I'll also circulate that link again. And we'll keep it open, I think, at least through the end of next week.
And if you haven't looked at the survey yet, it's specific to specific servicers, so you can rate them, and you can also give us some anecdotes. What's very helpful, actually, is if you write in the comment box on any things that you've seen. We pull quotes out of that, put them in the report. Very good stuff. Very, very helpful. Okay, so hopefully all of you are participating in the student loan debt webinars. They're actually very, very good. I'm really pleased. We have a number of the key advocates in the student debt field doing the trainings, along with Josh Cohen, who is an excellent attorney on student debt issues. The questions that we're getting heavy participation, so we're getting 450 plus people on the webinars. There's a maximum of 500, so that's great, and lots of very good questions. I think this has been a real learning experience for me, and I think very helpful for the people participating. We're going to continue with the series. The last opportunity to do the delinquency and default one is on Tuesday, and there are a few spaces left on that. And in the next round, which I want to really encourage people to seriously think about, they're a little bit less subscribed than the other ones. We pulled together the public service option, which directly applies to people who are working for government agencies or nonprofits, as in your housing counseling agency. And the benefit there is that you can get loan forgiveness after 10 years, not the usual 20, 25. We deal with debt consolidation in that last session. We'll also do something on private loans and the complicated place there. We do talk about in delinquency default about private loans, but this is sort of an additional piece. And we'll be important. We're also going to leave a lot more time for quick Q&A. We definitely picking up. People got lots of questions and lots of thoughts, and so there'll be more time for Q&A on this on the last round. There's only two that are the only two that are on that list are those 2 dates. The only ones that are open. The others are overbooked, and you can. But I think in this morning's email, I put the links in there, and you can click in if you've got staff to do it. And really, please feel free to bring your housing counselors in. It's really aimed at frontline housing counseling staff. We'll do another round hopefully in 2016 if we can put the resources together for it. And there will be one in January to update people on all this stuff. And of course, there'll be the advocacy call on next week's and leaders call in a couple of weeks to hone in on some of the issues about what we can be doing from what we're learning on this on a policy side. All which is great, but let's get down to the our guests today. So our first guest is Amy Scher from ACE, and Amy's a veteran community organizer who's had broad range experience and has been doing ambitious organizing campaigns. She's working with a broad coalition of community organizations and with elected officials to tackle this issue about what's sort of the next level on foreclosure strategy, on these distressed asset sales, principal reduction. Really an opportunity for all of us, and given what you're doing in the field and on the front lines, there would be some opportunities to maybe contribute information on what you're seeing on with some of the players in this field who are buying the loans. So, Amy, are you with us here?
I am. Thanks, Bruce.
Great.
You can hear me?
Good. Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
All righty. Hi, everyone. So, people have been hearing about this, but for the last few years, HUD, through FHA and their DAS program, has been selling off pools of distressed mortgages, very delinquent mortgages. And more or less, they've been selling them off to the highest bidder. They have put some requirements in place in terms of neighborhood stabilization, but they've been really minimal. And the highest bidders have been primarily hedge funds and private equity firms, literally. About over 95% of the distressed mortgages, delinquent mortgages they've sold off have been sold off to Wall Street speculators. And now Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are joining in to do similar. They've begun to auction off severely delinquent mortgages. And again, the vast majority are getting sold to Wall Street speculators. And so this is a tremendous concern locally on the ground in our communities. I'm with a community organization in low and moderate income communities, predominantly communities of color, and we have a big base of struggling homeowners, and for years have worked, like many of you, to help homeowners get good quality modifications and stay in their homes, and have worked to help stabilize neighborhoods. So now what we have as one more terrible aftermath of the crash is the growth of the sort of Wall Street landlord, and not just landlord though. They're handling through the programs I'm describing, delinquent mortgages. So the impact is that groups like private equity firms like Blackstone, you may have been hearing about, and Lone Star Fund, and there's a growing list, are acquiring these very delinquent mortgagors, and then their servicers are working with those homeowners based on the requirements of these distressed note sale programs. They are expected to attempt modifications, and in the data on how well these programs are working is practically non-existent, except HUD has finally begun to issue some reports on what is happening to homeowners once their mortgage is acquired by one of these Wall Street speculators. And the results we see are dismal and horrifying. And the vast majority of folks are being pushed out, losing their homes. And we started to working with probably some of the people on this call and some legal aid groups and community groups. We're starting to identify more and more cases, families, homeowners, and learning the details of what their experience has been once their mortgage was sold in this way. And we've been seeing, for example, Caliber Home Loans, which is servicing the mortgages for Lone Star Fund, this private equity firm founded by a billionaire Texan. That Caliber Home Loans is, contrary to what they should be doing in terms of HAMP guidelines, et cetera, they are offering really bad modifications when they're offering modifications at all. They tend to be 5-year interest only. They're not forgiving. There's no principal reduction, forgiveness, and they are tacking on essentially a big balloon payment on the back end. And after 5 years, the homeowner will likely lose their home unless their situation has changed significantly. Anyway, and that's just one example that we've seen a number of cases of. People might have caught there was a front page, top of the fold New York Times expose really about this by Matthew Goldstein. We can send it around, but he interviewed many homeowners who have Caliber Home Loans as their servicer, and their experiences were many of the experiences we hear all the time with bad servicers, both in terms of not only the quality of what kind of modification they get offered, but just how they're treated and their ability to reach their servicer and have clear communication, all the typical problems with bad servicers. And then shortly after that came out in the New York Times, another expose in the East Bay Express in California came out also about the same servicer. Anyway, I'll go back to that in a minute and how we're hoping you all might be able to help, but back to the bigger picture here. So they're, more often than not, these Wall Street speculators are kicking people out of their homes, and then they own the properties, the REOs. They're turning them into rental properties. In many, many cases, what we're seeing is they're fueling the displacement that had already been happening in many cities. Certainly it varies around the country, but in many places where poor and working class folks, particularly people of color, are getting pushed out of the urban core. And in general, we do not think it's good and healthy for our neighborhoods for Wall Street, national and multinational actors to be major landlords of our housing stock. So the campaign we are in is to get HUD and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to stop selling these distressed mortgages to Wall Street actors and to instead sell them to mission-driven entities, whether public or nonprofit, that have a program to attempt quality modifications with principal reduction. And when they can't save the home, which is definitely sometimes the case, as we all know, then these mission-driven entities have a property disposition plan that's about creating affordable housing. So they're both committed to home ownership preservation and also the creation of affordable housing and meeting the housing needs of our community. So it's a dramatically different impact than when Wall Street speculators are owning the housing stock in our neighborhoods. So we think it's incredibly important, especially as Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are ramping up their distressed note sales program, and the numbers are expected to get quite high in terms of what they're selling off. And then major banks are sometimes selling off delinquent mortgages to other investors as well, and we're hoping to get some of them to the table around this and get to some real scale and impact in our neighborhoods. So the campaign has really escalated over the last 6 months. We just did a big event with Senator Elizabeth Warren, who came out swinging on this issue on September 30th. We had a number of city mayors and local elected officials join us. People see, when you break it down to our city and our neighborhoods, the notion that federal agencies that are supposed to be dedicated to helping on the housing issue are selling off our precious housing stock to Wall Street speculators. People get that that's crazy, and especially when there's a clear alternative. So we have a real bottom-up campaign that's moving. New York Times editorial a week ago called for the suspension of this distress note sale program until they fix these issues. So we've won some changes already, but not enough. So part of how HUD and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac come back to us all the time and say, well, we're not sure these Wall Street investors are doing such a bad job. Do you have proof that they're not doing a good job? So we are working to document more and more cases of what kind of a servicer Caliber Home Loans is specifically. They're the sort of on the top of our list right now. Again, they're the servicer for Lone Star Fund. But also there's other servicers we're interested in as well that are servicing these particular mortgages. So it would be hugely helpful if any of you on this call either already know of some cases of problems with Caliber Home Loans, and or can start looking and see if you come across any, to let us know. So I'll stop there and turn it back to Bruce or somebody.
Well, that's good. And let's just quickly understand, when you say let us know, what should we do? How do we harvest this information? So we'll check and see if people have weighed in with Matthew. We'll look at so certainly if you want to put something into the Q&A box right now, now's the time. But so what should we think about mechanically in terms of how to get this information to you?
Some ways it might be up to you what you think is easiest, Bruce. If people all sent, well, first of all, in terms of what you send, I don't know if you have an existing format for when you're documenting problem cases for advocacy. But at a minimum, if you sort of got us a few sentences describing the problems with the case, and that would be helpful. And then where the homeowner is willing for us to use that case as an example, so they're willing to have their name and the details of the case, the very sort of broad details of the case shared, that's also very helpful. What would be helpful from me, Bruce, in terms of how to collect?
Good. Okay. And so we can figure out an email address, and we'll circulate after this call, probably on Monday at this point, kind of what people can do in terms of alerting on specific Caliber cases. Matthew, we got anybody that's weighed in at this moment?
Yeah, if you've Ditech and formerly Greentree, I'm not sure if Ditech was formerly Greentree or they're just saying formerly Greentree are the two that were specifically mentioned. We had a bunch of people weigh in with loud cheers of support when you described the campaign. And there's just a few questions that maybe I'll run through quickly. So if the homeowner is unable to keep the home, would they be able to rent it? So if they're unable to keep it, would they be able to rent it?
Well, that's a great question. So we've been working with some large community development, nonprofit community development financial institutions that have gotten into this market to compete with the speculators. So they're actively working to win the bids to get these pools of distressed mortgages. They are very open to a range of strategies. So that's one of the strategies they're open to. They're mission-driven entities that are trying to both help the homeowners and help the neighborhoods. So in many ways, we see this as we're trying to get greater community control over our housing stock, and this is one piece of how to do that. And so, yes, the nonprofits that we are working with, that's one of the strategies they're looking to employ. It is not surprisingly, that is not what the Wall Street speculators are doing right now.
All right. So this is a multi-part question. So can mission-driven entities afford to purchase the non-performing note pool, I guess is the first part.
I'll take that first then. Yes. So some of them already have purchase pools, but again, it's a small fraction of the total. Some of the mission-driven entities we're working with have enough private capital pledged to purchase another 10 or 20,000 mortgages. It's been fascinating to me that the nonprofits, have a business model that actually gives their pretty mainstream capital sources a good rate of return. So their capital sources are willing to keep funding a greater acquisition. Now, the one thing I will say is that when HUD and Fannie and Freddie insist on the very highest bid that they can possibly get, that often shuts out the nonprofits, because to make the fund, if you're going to do principal reduction, which the nonprofits do, it is a little more expensive, and they understand their business well, so their bid is a little lower. But it is still significant. They are able to pay good money, really fair market value for what these loans are worth. So the government agencies need to be willing to take a little less, but not a huge amount less. They still will recoup significant funding that they need for, like, the FHA mortgage insurance program, and that Fannie and Freddie need.
I should add that two of the groups that are regularly on these calls are among those groups that purchase those loans. So NCLR and New Jersey Community Capital both have robust programs in this area.
Yep, and they've got, so in other words, they have more money to buy loans than they have loans, which is what we keep emphasizing to HUD and Fannie and Freddie. There's untapped capacity on the nonprofit side.
And Howie Banker is on the call. I don't know if he wants to jump in, but he's going to let me know if he does. This next part of the question was asking about how servicing would work, what servicer they would use, or if you could just comment on how servicing works in this situation.
Well, so the nonprofits we work with have, I think they refer to them as sort of specialty servicers, but they've identified servicers, because these programs are up and running by the nonprofits, as Bruce just said. That they're already doing it, and they're already establishing a successful track record. And they have identified servicers that will work effectively with their modification protocols and waterfall. In other words, like New Jersey Community Capital / National Community Capital has established a way to service distressed mortgages that privileges principal reduction and obviously a quality sustainable, long-term sustainable mortgage. And so they have successfully found servicers that will work with their protocols and treat homeowners right, both in terms of just, the daily interactions as well as the protocols for trying to fix the mortgage. So I don't have the names, but we could easily find them, get them.
Great. Someone asked if you are looking for problems with Caliber beyond just the interest-only 5-year mods that they're doing.
Absolutely, yeah, no, broad ranging. Whether they don't return people's calls, any problems with them.
Great. Someone else asked how they can get on the list to have REOs donated to them.
Oh, I don't know. I'm actually not involved in such a program exactly.
Okay, so maybe we can do some follow-up. We can look into that and do a follow-up. And then Ellie Pepper, who is at Empire Justice in New York, said that the New York AG is investigating Caliber. So she said any New York groups can send Caliber issues to her or Herman De Jesus at the Center for New York City Neighborhoods. So we can circulate their contact info for New York folks to get issues too.
Great, yes. Hi, Ellie. I neglected to mention that this was also in the New York Times, like the day after the editorial about the program, as the announcement that the New York AG was investigating. And we're now working to get other AGs involved as well. So identifying, and critical to that, to get the AG interested, is bringing them cases, which is yet another reason why we are really eager for cases.
And the last is just kind of a comment suggestion, which is using groups of homes in more distressed neighborhoods to be set aside for community-based organizations.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely that's essentially the strategy we're trying to get to. You know, we're trying to open up a door here by beginning to get more of the housing stock, at least in this sort of program area, into the hands of nonprofits. From there, there's a lot of opportunities opened, we think, in terms of getting into land trusts locally and other strategies to try to get towards more permanent affordability and community control. So agree completely.
Great. I think that's all we've got for questions and comments.
That's great. If I could give my email, and people certainly can go ahead and send cases to me or ideas or questions. My email is my first initial and my last name, A, S as in Sally, C-H-U-R, so it's A-Sure, A-S-C-H-U-R, at calorganize.org. So that's C-A-L for California, then the word organize.org. And thanks a lot for having me on. Look forward to working out with y'all.
Thanks so much, Amy, and keep up that great work. It's all exciting stuff and very valuable for all of us. We'll circulate the your email as well when we do the summary on Monday. Okay, thanks so much, and let's move quickly over to Roz Quarto from ESOP, who I hope has joined us here. Good. So Roz was with us. Hey, Roz, glad to have you. Roz was with us maybe 6 months ago or so on talking with us on the Innovations in Housing Counseling series about some exciting work she was doing, and some of it was just starting up. And the idea here is to get back and see how things are going and what you've learned. So the two items that I remember most clearly were the Financial Capability for Senior Citizens program and your nonprofit real estate firm. But we're open to whatever learnings you've got as a seasoned veteran in this field. So Roz, welcome, and give us a picture of what things are happening.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. I'm sorry I don't have any slides or anything, but this was a last-minute fill-in, so just to defend my honor.
Thank you for that, too.
Yeah. So why don't we start with the realty, because I think that I've actually gotten a few calls from people that were on the call when we talked about the realty that we were starting. And we replicated CHW's program in, I think, San Diego. I know certainly in California. And I think there's been 7 or 8 people who have reached out to me. And so from our perspective, we're doing pretty well. We just looked at CHW's numbers from their first year, and in their first year they did 11 closings. We've been doing closings now for 10 months. We've done 18 closings. Now, I can tell you that the 11 closings CHW did 5 years ago was $76,000 in commissions. For us, it's obviously much less in Cleveland. The homes don't go for the same amount of money as in San Diego. But for those of you that weren't on the call, ESOP Realty is basically a mission-driven social enterprise. We're a comprehensive real estate brokerage. We currently have 5 real estate agents and 1 real estate broker on our staff. And we do not pay commissions. We pay salaries, the idea being that once we're not incentivized to sell somebody a really expensive home. And we have found that that we have really filled a missing link. So just for those of you who do pre-purchase counseling and home buyer education counseling, we get a lot of clients here in our pre-purchase counseling, and we're using regular realtors. And we look at their contracts now as a realty agency, and we see $4,000 and $5,000 in commissions the buyer is being required to pay on top of the regular commission structure. So even with all of the pre-purchase counseling and all of the home buyer education, it's just so easy for predatory realtors to, sneak in some fees. So we're pretty excited. Right now we're working with 40 buyers. We have about 35 active listings. We are just about in the black for the year. There's 2 months to go. We will probably be in the black. And for those of you who remember when I presented, CHW in their first year made $76,000 in commissions, and we're at something like close to $2 million after 5 years. And that's unrestricted money that we can bring back into ESOP's free programs. So at this point, it's been a wash for us. What it's cost and what we've made is about equal, which I used to own my own small business, and that would have been a great first year for us in my small business. So we're pretty excited. I think the harder issue to tackle is how to compete with advertising against for-profit brokerages. And so what we decided to do was kind of not fight that battle. So we have gone to all of the CDCs, the land banks, the housing authorities, other housing counseling agencies, and other nonprofits that may be doing rehabs and are trying to get listings that way. We're going to financial institutions to get on their REO lists, and we're working with them. So we are basically staying out of the advertising business. It's just too expensive. The other thing that we did and that we've learned is we've gone to a lot of the large realtors here in communities that used to be on the lower income, kind of marginal neighborhoods that are now kind of bursting here, and said, we know you're not going to give low to moderate income people who aren't buying $500,000 houses the same kind of attention. So why don't you refer them to us, and we'll treat them the way you're treating the people who are buying, you know, $500,000 houses. And that has proved for us to create some good partnerships. So really the trick at this point is figuring out what to pay realtors and where to find our realtors. So for those of you thinking about this, it's a very hard number to come to figure out where a realtor who has historically been trained to eat what they kill, to look at things from a different perspective. So we are searching for realtors who are very young, right out of school, who we can train, who don't have bad habits, and very old, who maybe don't want to be in the, quote, game that a commission-based structure provides. So Bruce, I don't know if you have questions or want to maybe guide me towards anything around this. I'm happy to.
So, I mean, is this a project that you think is that other counseling agencies should be looking at, and kind of
Absolutely.
what are the startup resources would be required?
Okay, so thank you. See, I knew I needed some guidance. I think for housing counseling agencies that are doing more than just foreclosure prevention, if you're doing pre-purchase counseling and homebuyer education, you have an audience, right? You have your clients. So we started homebuyer education this past year, and we've got 200 people that have gone through our homebuyer education classes this year. They're all in different parts of their pre-purchase counseling. Some may not be mortgage ready for 3 years, some in a year, but we've got, I don't want to say captive clients, that's a little bit much, but we don't have to look for buyers. They're coming to us through our HBE. And so I think it's an absolutely fabulous way to integrate your programming and take the next step towards self-sufficiency. I think that ESOP, my agency, lent ESOP Realty $25,000 to start up. We are still, we are at this point now able to pay most of that $25,000 back to ESOP and just live on the commissions we're generating. So you should be able to start something like this up with $25,000 or less.
And separate corporate entity? And it's incorporated as a nonprofit? Is it a 501c3?
Yeah. It's a 501c3. We incorporated it separately so that, well, for a variety of reasons. One, it's not the same business, right? But also, I didn't want to have to worry about HUD, since ESOP itself is a HUD-certified agency and works with HUD. This is completely separate. To me, now I sound like a member of a different party, but I don't want the government in my realty, right? It's a business. It's a business that's got a social mission. So we very easily got our 501c3 here. It was not difficult at all. It took us, we submitted the paperwork and had to answer 3 or 4 follow-up questions, and we're granted our 501c3. It took about 6 weeks.
Wow.
And if you start something at if you start something at the beginning of the year, it doesn't matter. You don't have to pay taxes backwards once you get your 501c3. So you basically have until April of the following year, or whatever it is, not April, July, to worry about that.
That's great. 6 weeks turnaround. So we got some questions piling up. So Matthew, what have we got?
Yep. The first is from Judy Hunter. She asked what you charge clients for the real estate services.
Well, we're just like a regular brokerage. So we charge 5 or 6% commission. It depends, and the commission is not charged to the buyer. So that was one of the reasons I didn't want to engage with HUD around it. But our fees go to the lister, the property lister. So if we work with, for example, we work with NHS here, it's their NeighborWorks agency. If they do a rehab and they want to list a property with us, we'll charge them, or negotiate. Maybe Howard Hanna might charge them 6%. So we'll charge them 5% and maybe 4% if we don't need, if we bring the client to them. So it's very much traditional in that way. But we don't, we can go much lower than a traditional real estate broker just because we don't have to pay commission to people. So we're not splitting our commission with our staff.
Great.
Does that make sense?
Yep. A few different people had asked about, since you don't do commissions, if there are things like bonuses or
we're still working that out. The irony would be you don't want to bonus if somebody brings a market property, because you don't want to encourage too many market properties because you want to stay focused on the mission. But if I can sell a $1 million property, that entire commission is now unrestricted money for my agency. So we have not worked through a bonus structure yet. I know CHW doesn't pay commissions, but they do pay bonuses, and I'm not quite there yet in what it would be. It might be a bonus based on listings they bring in that are private listings. Something like that would be that. But we are going to aim for, we want every real estate agent to be able to have 16 closings per year. And that's not, if you're a regular realtor, that's not going to pay. That's not going to feed you, probably. So that's about where we're at, is hoping that each person could do 16. So it's possible that we might create some kind of bonus pool at the end of the year for everything done over 16. We're still working on that.
Okay. I think you already addressed this, but maybe just make sure. Someone asked how you were funded to be able to pay the agents, or I guess just funding. Was it entirely the $25,000?
Well, because we get commission. So we've brought in $35,000 in commissions in the last 6 or 7 months. We started with part-time brokers, and in particular because we're looking at partially retired people. They don't necessarily want to work full-time. So in Cleveland, which is obviously going to be less than if you're on the coast, we're paying about $20, $23 an hour, up to 20 to 30 hours, and we pay them on a 1099. And each week we pre-approve how many hours they can get. And it's been, at this point, we're operating in the black from the commissions we've earned versus what we're paying out. But obviously, we now have 5 broker agents, which we didn't before. We only had 2. But if you do the math, if 16 agents, I'm sorry, if one agent is doing 16 closings a year, their salary is more than covered by that.
Great. Someone else asked if whether a counselor can also be an agent.
Can a counselor? Anybody can be an agent. I mean, you got to go to school, and unfortunately, guess who's doing that now? That would be me. Yes. For us, we're very, and we do respect HUD's requirements. So I won't let 2 of my realtors are counselors. They also are counselors. I will not let them do the presentation at our HBE class. I only allow our agents or broker to do our presentation, and during our presentations at our own HBE, we provide names and cards for other real estate brokerages and make it clear that they don't have to hire us, that this is free. There's no relationship between coming to us as a realtor and coming to us as a housing counseling agency. So we spent a lot of time making sure that we have, I'm a lawyer, it's called a Chinese wall, where there's there's separation there. And we have them also, any client who comes through our counseling side that does choose to hire us, we have them sign a third-party authorization that says very specifically they know that we are a related entity and that there's, no fee and that they're not obligated to use us, and we told them they could use other people.
Great. That actually answers a question a few other folks had about disclosures. All right, a couple more.
I want to make sure we have enough time for the financial literacy as well, the senior financial literacy.
Okay. So why don't we go on, and then we'll just, if we have time at the end, we can come back to the last few questions.
So you had a special initiative around seniors. How's that going?
That's going great. There's a couple of things we've done. We started a small dollar loan program here. We've seen an increase in foreclosures because of unpaid property tax loans. Unpaid property taxes. So we've created a small dollar loan program that requires financial coaching of the clients, and we were easily able to raise money for that program. We've raised about $300,000 for that program. We've already lent out about $100,000. We've got 20 seniors who are actively engaged in financial coaching, who have made every payment on time, who so far have seen an increase in their credit scores, an average of 30 points in five months because we call in their on-time payments. So we've got 20 seniors that are on the road to being able to stay in their homes and develop some self-sufficiency. And we also sent another 20 to local CDFIs and other nonprofits that were also able to get loans but did not qualify for our loan because they owed too much. And so we feel like that's working really well. On the bigger end, the overall financial counseling for seniors, and I just want to say this to people, there's a lot of money out there that's available. There are not a lot of agencies that are concentrating on financial capabilities work with seniors. So a lot of agencies, a lot of United Ways, things like that, that historically give to seniors things, haven't had to give to senior financial capabilities programs. So it's a real opening.
And what was the source of the investment money for the loans?
Third Federal Savings and Loan, which is a local bank here, actually had some money that they had invested in other places that they needed to use really quickly. So they gave me $200,000, like with 2 days' notice. And what we did with it, and this I would highly recommend people look into, turns out it was innovative and it was a complete accident. I didn't want their money on the books to me. So what they did is they deposited $200,000 at a local CDFI. The CDFI services our loans, so we underwrite the loans. The CDFI services it. They lend their own money, so they have more money on the street. They have new members who get the loans, and they have an additional $200,000 in deposit. And that $200,000 works as a 100% guarantee on the loans that they give out at our request. Was that too quick, or did that make sense, Bruce?
Fascinating, yeah, pretty cool.
So what happened is the CDFI is now thrilled, right? Anybody we give a loan to has to, we also pay for them to join the CDFI, but the bank pays the money for that, so we didn't have to pay for it. So they get new members, they get new loans on the street, and they get a $200,000 deposit, and they don't have to worry about bad loans. They service the loan. I don't need a license to lend. I can use, this is one of those, if I were kings, I'd decide who we're going to lend to based on underwriting standards we've written. And the bank gets their CRA obligations met. So everybody's happy.
And and you're thinking in terms of financial capability that the source of funding for that is United Ways, and are there other places that people should look?
Yeah, so let me just say, we've gotten money to do our financial capabilities work in general. We've gotten money certainly from financial institutions. That's the easy one. But we were blackballed from United Way. They never gave us a penny. United Way jumped on our overall senior financial education empowerment initiative, excuse me. So United Way gave us 6 figures in the first year they ever funded us. Every single county we work in has a senior tax levy, so we're able to access senior tax levies everywhere we have clients, and it's allowed us to expand our program outside of Cleveland and Cuyahoga County, and we're out in some of the rural areas also. CDBG funding.
What's a senior tax levy? What is that?
Well, in Ohio, different counties get some tax levy monies for seniors. They get to, and most, at least in Ohio, most counties and cities put aside money specifically for seniors. And a lot of this money has been spent on the same types of things, food bank things for seniors, transportation. But we've found that they're really looking for new programming, and this is a step towards greater self-sufficiency. And so we're finding that we're really able to tap into this money. And I think one of the reasons is the politicians really favor it, because who votes? Seniors vote. And so we've been able to kind of get some help from local politicians because they want to say that they support the program. And then we just make sure that we do some of our financial workshops in their wards, in their districts.
Excellent.
So we, I think we're go back to some questions on the first part has gathered a lot of questions.
We only have a couple minutes left here, so.
If the fees are not charged to the buyer, where do the fees from the transactions go, or how are the funds or fees collected? Are the fees funded in the transaction?
Well, I said it earlier. It's commission. Our brokerage still gets commissions. It's our agents that don't get paid commissions. So all real estate brokerages charge the seller. So at the time of sale, the brokers get paid. In fact, you have to get paid. Otherwise, it's a lien on the property. I think that's true in pretty much every state that I'm familiar with. So we get paid at closing.
And it's just a standard transaction, like any other closing, yeah?
Standard transaction. Yep. We have a standard broker. What we did is we found a broker who was not young, in her golden years, who wasn't really using it very much. And so the state here required that she serve on our board to oversee that we meet our ethical obligations, and her license is parked here.
Great.
And so everything, it's just, right, you would have no reason to know. Nobody in the, the mortgage broker, we're just a regular realty. We happen to be a 501c3, but we show up on the RESPA exactly the same for the commission paid to broker. It just doesn't go to the agent. It goes to the agency.
Great. Thank you so much. I think I apologize to the folks we didn't get to for questions. If you want to email me, we can follow up. But I think that's all we have time for.
You can also, if you would like to put my email, you can put my email.
Cool.
I see Matt put it on for Amy Sure, but it's rquarto, Q-U-A-R-T-O, at esop-cleveland.org. And I'm happy to talk to anybody. CHW made it possible for us to do this, and I think this is going to be something that's going to help my other agency, ESOP, be completely self-sufficient in 4 or 5 years.
And we could think about maybe making this into kind of a peer learning something at NHRC, so that we could put together regular forums or something as a way of, if there's real interest in this and pursuing it, then we might be able to help groups learn from each other on this. So that's good. Well, great. As always, thank you so much, Faraz. Keep up that great work.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, good. And we're just going to close out really quickly. You know, seriously think about joining NHRC. We do have a panoply of membership activities that we do. And obviously the benefits we've talked about. And frankly, if you're part of the NHRC membership list, there are some funding opportunities we'll roll out to people that to make sure they're aware of them. And I just remembered very recently the NHRC members all got an opportunity to be to volunteer to be involved in a book on the financial crisis and the servicing, the CFPB servicing standards, and they several people have been now interviewed for it. Last year we had there was a documentary being made, and a number of agencies participated in that as well, and we got clusters in different parts of the country. I'm actually interested. We should find out what happened to that documentary. It was by a very high-level group of people. But so different things happen, and we're glad to share them. You know, we'd love to get more members in, though we do have a good, solid membership base. We're working on some new initiatives, which we will roll out soon, and want you to be a part of that as well. And let's be sure to join us in early November for the next one, which will be around the student loan debt advocacy and how that impacts our work. All right, keep up the good work, everybody. Don't forget about the Leaders National Meeting coming up in December. Definitely want to be registered for that, and your registrations. And give me some ideas if there are things you've got that we need to be working on. Thanks a lot.